Give him another hand. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
So we're getting McCaleb up on the. Oh, there we go. He's on the screen. Hey, McCaleb, how you guys? Can you hear us? Can we hear him? 1 minute, McCaleb.
McCaleb, say something.
Say hi, McCaleb.
Hi.
There we go.
Hi, how you doing?
So I'm just going to start.
Yeah.
Most of you know John, but we'll start.
Everybody wave.
We're going to do a little hi.
That's right. I love it. Thank you.
Nice. So
You'll be on
you're.
the Facebook page.
We'll start
Okay,
with
here I
John.
am.
Introduce yourself, and then we'll introduce everyone else.
I'm John Lindstrom. I'm the director, co-writer, and co-producer of the film, and a co-actor.
I'm Jeff Barry. I'm co-writer, co-producer. I played Will, stunt coordinator.
Chief bottle washer.
Yeah, washed some toilets. Locations.
Yeah, that's on the Facebook page, too.
Yeah.
Jeff cleaning a toilet.
You're up, Mac.
I'm McCaleb Burnett. I'm an actor and the co-writer.
So we're going to jump right in. So McCaleb and Jeff, I hear that you guys kind of started with a story. Can you talk a little bit about the story and how you guys figured that out and kind of where it went from there into script?
It's actually McCaleb's. McCaleb kind of had the seed to the idea for the story, and we were something that he had kind of been playing around with for a while. We were sitting in Washington Square Park one night, and he kind of told me about it, and I was like, wow, I think I could write this for a bunch of locations that my family has up in Rochester, New York. And I went to go do a play at the Huntington. He came to LA, and we were living together here. And I got here in like January with the first draft. Is that about right, Mac?
Yeah, I had it before then that had been mucked around with in ways that it changed in ways that changed the script a lot with another writer. And then Jeff and I talked, and we started writing for actors we knew, which was really useful. And then when he came out to LA, I've been going back and forth for a while. My visual, by the way, is just Jeff right now, just so you guys know. And then we started to sort of slowly hone in on it. We went through periods where it would change. We got through sort of stages of it, and then I think right before Jeff left LA the last time, we got to a place where we felt sort of comfortable with it. But it was mostly written for people we knew, and with the spine of the story that I'd had, in 2001. And then John got involved, and then it sort of started to shift.
Can you add, John, how you then kind of got into the picture?
Well, I didn't know Mac and Jeff until I met McCaleb by chance at a wedding in Las Vegas, of all places. Some mutual friends of ours got married up there. We met and hit it off, and sometime after we got back, McCaleb got in touch with me. By that time, I'd already gotten a script made called The Hard Easy, and that I had written and was able to get made with Bruce Dern and Peter Weller and Vera Farmiga, and a terrific cast. McCaleb came to me and he said, "Okay, we've been through some fits and starts with this project. I wonder if you could take a look at it and see what you think." And I read it, and I said, I think you've got a great premise here, and especially a great theme having to do with how people deal with lies and how they ultimately react. I mean, that was my visceral reaction to it. And I said, but I do think we need to change the focus, and I will be happy to help you rewrite this if I'm attached to direct it. And both McCaleb and Jeff happily agreed to that. So that's how I got it.
You made some major shifts. And you made some major shifts as far as
I did. I made some major shifts in the thrust of the story. I don't think this is what you guys intended, but the way it hit me and my sensibility through my filters, it felt a little bit more like a thrill kill film rather than a mystery, and I felt it needed to have an emotional thrust that the audience could sympathize with. But it wasn't until we got through the rewrite that we realized that people weren't really going to sympathize with it until we got to the very end of the movie. But that was just a process of going through rewrites and trying to find the right way. McCaleb and I were both in LA at the time. In 2008, I moved to New York, where Jeff was living, and we started meeting weekly or bi-monthly to talk about the script and working on additional rewrites and tweaks. We thought we were going to shoot in 2009, right? And we realized we don't have enough money. Yeah. And fortunately, I was on a television show out there, and about a year and a half later, the show got canceled. But a year and a half of television can take you a long way towards a budget that you need to make. And also, I was out of work, and the timing really just kind of came together, and that's how we found a situation that we could get it made. Fortunately, because of Jeff coming from Rochester, we had housing, food, and locations for free. Well, not the food.
That's amazing. And then, did you guys know from moment one that you all three would be acting in it as well? Was that the plan?
Yeah, well, McCaleb and Jeff had written with specific people in mind, really Jacob Knoll, who played Ronnie, Luke Robertson, who played Dallas. A couple other people were in mind, when I wrote the character, I actually came up with the character through the rewrites with Mac for Walter and Detective Becker. And we had an actor attached to play Becker, and unfortunately he had to fall out. And so it was really my wife who suggested that maybe I should think about just playing that. And I thought, well, I won't fall out, you know.
He'll be there.
I'll be there, yeah. So that's really how that happened.
Wow.
Which was fortuitous because Jeff is a director. And so when I was in front, he could step behind the camera.
And then what, in the process, did you guys decide to take on the other producers that you guys had? I saw Aaron Craig, and you had a line producer and two associate producers. How did you build the producing team?
Aaron, it was funny, Aaron produced the first show I did in New York when I was like 19. And
Aaron is a theater producer, by
theater
the way,
producer.
New York theater producer.
Yep. And had totally lost touch with her when I went to grad school, and was doing a show in New York, and she saw the reviews and came and was like, hey, and I was like, oh my God. And she was like, let's meet up, tell me what you got going on. I was like, I got this script, it's kind of been floating around, close to been getting done. And she was like, I'll send it over. And she was like, yeah, I think we should do this. And she had some things in place that were really helpful for us on the producing side, paperwork side, insurance side, all of that stuff. But she was really the one that ignited it from almost getting done in 2009, kind of being dormant for a little bit, to then going out and starting to get money to do it. And then the line producer, Rowena Mackay, Rowena was actually a dramaturg in my class at Yale, and she just came out. There's not a lot of dramaturg positions out there in the world anymore, unfortunately. And so she started doing production work, and she's the smartest person I know, and I kind of, guilted her into working on it. And, that staff, that side of things, when you've never made a film, is huge because, paperwork and stuff like that can stop you quickly. And when you have people that know, have been through it before, it's immensely helpful.
And were they kind of the on-set go-to people when you guys were either shooting a scene or directing or acting? Were they there to kind of quench some of the fires, or was that mainly your guys' role on set to be kind of the trio to take care of all that?
Conventional wisdom is a line producer deals with today, or a UPM, a production manager, deals with today, I'm sorry, that's the other way around. A first AD would deal with today. A line producer is going to deal with tomorrow. I'm also in the Directors Guild, so we had to get a waiver, a first AD / UPM waiver, so that a first AD was basically supposed to do both jobs. But there's no way that one person would have been able to do that job. Thankfully, Rowena did know how to think ahead and plan for the next day. The first AD, Jennifer Blood, was somebody that I actually worked with as a stage manager on As the World Turns out there. And she saw the job listed on the bulletin boards that I put up on the Directors Guild website and called me. And for some reason, I didn't even think about her, but she called me and said, I'll work for whatever you're paying. As pretty much everybody did. Yeah. So when it comes to putting out fires, I think when you have producers who are ultimately in charge and have to take responsibility for what goes wrong. It's usually our responsibility to fix it, but Rowena and Jen, I think, were people that were able to avoid those problems, and for the most part, we did. So, I mean, that's, it's almost film production 101, plan ahead. Again, get people who know how to do that so you can avoid any problems.
We never missed a day, so we made every day that we had scheduled.
We never even went into overtime.
We never went to overtime, and that was because of Rowena and Jen Blood.
We'll get in a little bit more of that. I want to talk a little bit about the casting process. You guys already mentioned writing for some of the actors. How did the other characters come to be? Did you obviously write for them and then hold auditions? Did you just, obviously didn't have a casting director, so it was just someone you just posted or just talked to other actors or agents? How did that kind of process come to be?
We had a stealth audition, basically. We did do a table read, and that was in February of 2011, right? And on 72nd Street, and bitterly cold outside. But we brought together as many people as really as you guys knew, as Mac and Jeff knew, and had everybody read the script. And we all knew that there were a couple of people that really weren't working out. And thankfully, it wasn't because of an audition process that we realized that. But we knew we had to find a few people. The people we auditioned, the characters we auditioned were Lee, which was ultimately cast with Michael Evans, Elizabeth, which was Brienne Moncrief, and the amazing Richard Beacons, who played Walter, actually came in and read for that part. And that's actually a good story. I was living in New York, but I was out here with my wife for about 6 weeks while she was shooting a job here, and I ran into my old landlord in Venice, and who is also a television producer, and I said, man, I've got to find somebody who can be McCaleb Burnett's father. Do you know anybody? And he said, oh, yeah. And he said, my friend Richard Beacons. And he described him to me, and he said, in fact, Richard's in town. I'll try and set up a meeting for you. I put him in a TV movie a few years ago. And we went off on our way, and we're walking down Abbot Kinney, and I turned a corner, and here comes my old landlord with Richard Beacons. And we met, and we talked, and I'm standing there looking at him. I go, holy shit, you look just like McCaleb Burnett in 30 years. And it turns out Richard and McCaleb knew each other from the Normal Heart, correct, at the Public Theater, Mac? Can you hear me, Mac? Yes, okay.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you. So we knew that at least there would be almost an inbred relationship between the two of them that they could work with. So it was fortuitous, and he still came in and read. I don't know why. I think we offered him the part before he left the building, right?
We called his agent.
We called his agent, yeah, as he was leaving. Yeah.
When you guys were on set, did the writing?
He's an amazing actor.
Extraordinary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you
And thanks for the vote of confidence, McCaleb, when we told you his name.
once you guys got on set, for the writing portion of it, did the script, was it locked? There was things that had to change, ad-libbing, or was you kind of verbatim on the script's final draft?
There's a big lag there.
Sorry, Mac?
Say that again, Mac?
It's kind of in and
We're having
out
troubles
there.
with Mac. Okay.
I don't think there wasn't a whole lot of improvisation. Before I went out, I got together with a director friend of mine named Peter Markle, who's an amazing director. He directs a lot of top television. He's done 8 or 9 features, and he's done a lot of independents. And he said, okay, here's one little trick for you on a limited budget with limited time. Get your actors in a circle, let them read it through a couple of times, and then let them walk around the set a little bit. And let them start finding their spots. And through that process, you will find your master. And once you find your master, now you know how to shoot the rest of the scene. And I did that quite a bit. And was able to, I mean, it just saves you a lot of time. Personally, I think because of McCaleb and Jeff, knowing who they knew, Luke Robertson, Jacob Knoll. Brienne came through a friend. Richard, highly recommended.
Sam.
And
Ben.
Sam.
Samantha Schul, who played Sarah, who graciously did one scene. Well, 2 scenes if you count being hung. As a director, I got lucky. I got really lucky because everyone showed up, knew their work, and did their A game.
So you talked a little bit about the production days. How many actually were there? You made them all, but how many days did you actually shoot?
I always forget. I think it's 16 principal and pick up shots on a day on either side, something like that.
And then, Jeff, were you there a couple weeks before? How was it kind of like, right before? Was it mainly you and then everyone kind of showed up the day before? How did that kind of all pan out?
We made a couple, I think John and I took a trip up to scout. Well, I had been writing locations that I just knew because I grew up at, but they had never seen. So John and I went up once for a couple days, and then we went up with our DP, Michael Belcher. And because of that, we only got there like 2 days before, which is kind of crazy. But we pretty much just had to show up and shoot at the locations. We got up, McCaleb had a first day of shooting pretty much by himself, walking around, some stuff in the house. I think day 2 was just McCaleb and I, and then we got everybody else up there. Is that right, Mac?
It was the full opening. We did the first 4 pages, I think, in that first day, and then we went straight up until the first introduction of everybody else, right?
Yeah.
And then you and I.
Actually, the first day we shot the first 4 pages and the last page.
Oh, right.
Because we actually shot the very end of the movie on the first day. Nothing like out of sequence, right?
But we didn't have 2 weeks of pre-production. We didn't really have any of that, but we didn't know any better.
Well, I did storyboard.
Well, yeah. I mean, we did our work before.
Yeah, word of caution, storyboard.
Yeah. So then, when we talked a little bit backstage, what are you guys had stories of things that happened that you didn't plan for, that you had to fix in the moments, and then specifically maybe, and that's for Jeff, for John, maybe a scene or two where you're like, okay, you need to know the context of how we got this shots. Like if you knew the story.
You want to go first? I'll go first. All right. For me, it was probably the most crucial sequence in the film, which is the murder. And we were in Rochester in August, right before the end of the summer, and all the kids are ready to go back to school, and everybody's trying to get the last of the summer in, and we're shooting on the beach of Lake Ontario on a Saturday night. Who scheduled that anyway?
Rowena.
Yeah, Rowena, yeah. Anyway, we get out there, and there's parties going on all the way up and down the beach. You can hear music going, and then it starts to rain, which it does a lot in Rochester, even in August. And I had storyboarded the whole thing, and I realized, okay, I'm not going to be able to get all those shots that I thought I was going to be able to do, but at least I know what I need. And again, that's the importance of storyboarding. If you know what your sequence is going to look like, then at least you're going to get what you have to have for some kind of impact. So we started making it up. And what's amazing about that sequence now, and I have to really give kudos to our editor, Tony Rendell. Tony is an amazing editor who shoots a lot of horror, or cuts a lot of horror movies, really. And it was the last thing we edited. We treated it like its own exercise. And ultimately, we approached it as if we were doing the shower scene in Psycho. We didn't have the money. Jeff was the stunt coordinator. And so we were able to get certain shots and certain action that we could use, but we couldn't hit anybody with a pipe. We couldn't actually have blood spurting off of somebody's face or anything like that. So what we had to do was cut that together, and a lot of it, probably a third of it, is almost outtakes. Just the camera rolling down someone's leg and catching the blood off the pipe. Trying to stay with McCaleb, who nearly lost his right arm in that scene just from swinging. Actually, both of you guys did. They showed up the next day going, wow, my arm's sore. So it was really ultimately it was like having to save something that we weren't really even sure we had all the footage for. And we actually talked about the possibility of going back up there and having to reshoot, which would have broken the bank. We wouldn't have been able to do it.
Jeff?
What unexpected things?
Unexpected things as maybe as a producer that you're like, okay. Didn't plan for that, and now we have to problem solve.
Right. So everything up there was in my family. I wrote it for, places I grew up. The main house was my grandfather's house. And the restaurant was on the other side of the family, grandfather's. Coincidentally, as John was saying, timing-wise, the next year everything was gone. They sold the house, sold the restaurant. That was the only time we could have done it. But we had.
And that house is a historical.
Yeah, that's in the historic register. It's
Yeah.
a Claude Bergen design, and they had got renovated. It had been vacant for like 10 years, and so it was and it was also a point in time where my family really came together. We kind of have a disjointed, classically dysfunctional American family, and a lot of good things happened in that house. But I came up and I said, hey, we're going to make this film. Are you guys cool? Is everybody supportive of this? And everyone was like, yeah. And I think they just thought, McCaleb and I were going to come up with some friends and like a little video camera or something. And then, everybody was like, my family was making airport runs like every other hour to pick up like 25 people flying up from New York and gear and everything. And so along the way, somehow my grandfather's iPad went missing from the house and never showed up. So, we had a crew of people.
Man, he loved his iPad.
Yeah. And so that was pretty sticky. That was a real sticky situation. I was saying we had a few people that we had hired locally in Rochester who we didn't know, and we had the core of our crew had come up from New York with us. And, we didn't know anybody before. It was our first film. I didn't know anybody before except the cast. And so that was tough. And it was on a day where we had maybe 3 or 4 hands that were only with the crew for a day or two. And it was gone. And this was like probably end of week 1 with two more weeks to shoot. And, that was a sticky situation. And to my family's credit, they let us keep going and, in that sort of personal violation. And to John's credit, he got in a car and drove to the Apple store and bought a new iPad for him, which wasn't in the budget. It's a real interesting thing, for us where they had never seen me in this capacity at all as producing a film and all of these people. And, that was one thing. Not only, John did a great job on the film, but he was also the right person as far as giving me some legitimacy in regard to my family. They knew who he was. He had,
Well, that's because your grandma is a fan.
Well, like I said, legitimacy.
She watches the soaps.
You
She watched General Hospital. Yeah.
That goes a long way.
It does.
Like I said,
Let that be a lesson
they let us
to
keep
you.
going. So stuff like that, and especially when you're dealing with, in your family space and stuff like that, we couldn't have gone and paid for all those locations. We didn't have enough money, so stuff like that is very hard. My grandmother emailed me last night because she was watching the film on iTunes now that it's come out and was like, and they were in a different house, and it ended up kind of being this, it's a film about killing somebody, but it was kind of a love story, a love letter to home for me, and it kind of caught this moment in time for my family, and everybody watches it, and now they're like, man, that was awesome, that was so cool. Like day 8, we were like,
Can we do it again?
so that stuff is hard, but you just gotta keep grinding with that stuff.
You power through, man. You power through. Just roll with it.
Your family was
And
really
buy
great about
another
it.
iPad if you have to.
Yeah.
Did you have something to say, McCaleb?
No, his family was amazing about stuff, and we were really lucky, and what we tried to do, which was just write something for locations we had, ended up being really useful in the end.
Yeah,
You know?
and something else that we were able to make use of, as you've seen the movie, McCaleb and Jeff's character are operating pretty much in their own world. And, at least 20 minutes in the movie, they've already joined up into something that nobody else knows about. And we were able to put Mac and Jeff in the house to sleep there. And Samantha was also staying there, who was an enigma to everybody anyway. The rest of the cast was in a cabin owned by Jeff's grandfather out of town. And they had to go through that whole process of not only getting to know each other, but living for 3 weeks in a cabin outside of town and with one shower. So they had to work through their own stuff. And actually, I had a rabbit at the time. I took the rabbit out there and made them feed the rabbit every day. And I would go out once a week, a couple of times, and clean the cage. But they were forced into that situation where psychologically they were able to use that and bring that to set every day. So it's amazing according to what you have. This is what we have. How can we use it to our advantage?
It's huge. And I think on that note, it's a great note, because we have a lot of first-time producers. We encourage a lot of our actors to create their own work. I think all you said there is huge, of writing to what you have and what you can get for free. Any other
Use what you have and who you know.
any other
Use what you have and who you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I said use what you have and who you know.
What you have and who you know.
Did you guys hear that?
Yep.
Yeah, we got it.
Thanks.
We got you. Thanks, buddy.
We're trying a new system here, so.
I'm trying.
absolutely
I'm doing
right.
the best I can.
Can you, any other advice, kind of as a nugget of information, wisdom, that you're like, now that we've done this, this is what we kind of learned down this path that maybe can help someone?
Along those same lines, as a filmmaker, this is what you have. My first choice was really not to shoot in a house as ornate and as beautiful as that, but that's what we had. And once we got into post-production, we got to work with a terrific colorist that came through Jeff. We developed 4 looks for this environment. And we named them, actually. It was Saddam's Palace, which is that house. It looks so beautiful, right? I mean, there's a lot of color correction in that. Brought out all the blues, brought out all the greens. Saddam's Palace, Saddam's Basement, which is where the body was. And that's the first time you actually see things starting to turn kind of green. And then you go to the restaurants, and they're kind of turning a little moldy green. And then we had Half Death, which was some of the flashbacks happening, and when they were dealing with the body, and Full Death, which is the color scheme that you see in the murder. If it weren't for the opportunity that that house and that environment gave us, we never would have come up with those ideas. So I say just learn to roll with it. If this is what you have, get creative and try to make the most of that, because that's probably all you're going to get out of it. You can't wish for more. Just go with it. Take your shot. If you want to do it, take your shot. And go see Nikki Braidland's movie that's screening here tomorrow night, As High as the Sky, which we came in only second to at Sonoma, at the Sonoma Film Festival. And that's all I have to say.
Yeah, I would say, anytime if there's anybody that wants to make film, I teach a little bit in the Northeast, and I'm just like, how many people in the room have an iPhone? There's iPhone film festivals, there's editing software that comes on a Mac. It doesn't really matter if your story's good and something that, McCaleb had and we worked on for a long time. It was, we started writing that night in Washington Square Park was 2005, Mac? And we went into production in 2012. That's a long time. So many rewrites and content is king, but just go and do it. You just have to do it, and you're going to find out if you like doing it or if you don't. And either one is totally okay. There's a lot of people that talk about making films, and there's a real sliver of people that actually go and do it. And the tools to go and do it, film has been completely democratized by technology. And as a result, we have a million different things out there to go and see, but there's no reason to not do it now, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, if you're going to get into filmmaking, and to me, being an actor or a writer or a director or whatever, all of us are filmmakers. It's all part of the same tent and the same creative energy. We could have shot this on iPhones, but it wouldn't have been appropriate. Not for me, personally. But if you're going to do it, if you got a piece of material and you want to shoot it on an iPhone, I think just make sure that it's appropriate to be shot on an iPhone. We've been picked up by a distributor called Devolver Digital Films. Terrific company, and they have a terrific film that you can see online now called Love's Her Gun. Stars the woman that's in the series Believe right now. But it's all shot, handheld, all around Austin, Texas, and Brooklyn, New York, and it works beautifully. If you're going to do it, decide what your movie wants to be and wants to look like, and then get everybody together and make sure that you want to make the same movie. So I guess I would say if you're going to do it, experiment away. Try something. Be bold. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But the next time you won't make the same mistake again.
And ultimately, I'll just add that, McCaleb and I, through, all the years of rewrites and all of that, a couple of years before John got involved and then all that time after, we just wanted to write roles that we wanted to do as actors.
Yeah.
We just said we're going to come out of this with a couple pretty, kick-ass scenes to put on a reel, ultimately.
I didn't look at it that way, but directors never do. And, Jeff's starting another feature to shoot in Dallas, Texas, and he's not thinking about demo reel. He's thinking about making a film.
But I'm saying,
aren't you?
Well,
I'm not in
four
that
now.
one. I'm not in that one at all. But in the time, I guess I say that in the times where you're just like, this is never going to get done. How we, oh yeah, we were kind of hot around town like 2 weeks ago, but now nobody returning our phone calls. Like we're sitting in Silver Lake just looking at the script, and I'm like, man, this isn't that bad. Like, damn, we could be pretty good in this. Like, what's happening? Like, well, someday, this is gonna be really good for us. Just to persevere.
Yeah, I think I hear whatever the motivation is, find that motivation to make it happen because it's perseverance.
Yeah, DIY really does mean do it yourself. If you're going to do it yourself, do something you really want to do and invest your time into.
That's about all time we have for us. Let's give them another hand. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
McCaleb, John, Jeff. All the best on the future of this film and future endeavors.
No question.
We're gonna wrap it up now. So thanks.
Oh, thanks, Mac.
Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Mac.
Thanks, Mac.
Thanks,
Great
guys.
to see you, buddy.
Come tomorrow night. See
Thank
Mickey's
you.
movie.
Love you, pal.